never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed week number 2 in the world of college football. There was a lot of good games yesterday, some not so good games, but a lot of good games. And of course, coming up later on today, we'll see the new AP poll. It may already be out depending on when you watch this video. And thankfully, none of you corrected me last week. I didn't even think about it until a couple of days later, but I was doing my college football video and I talked about how the AP poll normally comes out on Tuesdays, and that is factually incorrect. I guess when I said that, I was thinking about the college football playoff poll, because when it starts coming out the week of Halloween, it comes out on Tuesdays, but the AP poll comes out on Sunday. But anyway, let's talk about some of the games from yesterday. As always, any thoughts on any of it, please feel free to let me know. And while you're in the comment section, go ahead, like the video, give the video a thumbs up, share the video on all social media platforms, and if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe to the video. It takes a total of about 2 seconds. Utah defeated Baylor 20-13, and Baylor was actually leading that game 13-6, and then late in the fourth quarter, Utah comes back and wins the game. Colorado defeats Nebraska 36-14, and poor Nebraska just looks flat out awful. They're having the same problems that Tennessee had and the same problems that Alabama had back in the day, and that is they run off their coach and then they just can't be happy with the replacement, so they find themselves with a revolving cast of characters in a revolving door getting a head coach. Because back in the day, if you recall, when Bear Bryant coached Alabama, when he retired, they brought in Jackie Sherrill. He was there for a while, but then after he retired or quit, ever how you want to call it, after that, none of their coaches were good enough, because they were comparing all their coaches to Bear Bryant and thought everybody could come in there and do what Bear Bryant did, and it didn't work. And there was about a 25-year stretch where I swear Bama had like 7 coaches. And then Tennessee, when they got rid of Philip Fulmer, they compared all their coaches to Fulmer. And he's been gone now almost 20 years, and they've had, I think, about 6 or 7 head coaches. Now, I think they finally found the right coach now, but Nebraska back in the day, after Tom Osborne retired, Frank Zolich came in, and Frank Zolich won about 9 games a year. But after following in the footsteps of Tom Osborne, those 9 wins just simply weren't good enough. And they ran off Frank Zolich, and Pelini came along and Pelini won about 9 games a year. And for them, that just wasn't good enough. So they ran him off. And ever since then, they've had about 7 or 8 coaches in about 15 years. And they just cannot get back to where they used to be. They look awful. Washington State defeats Wisconsin 31-22. Mississippi State has to go to overtime to defeat Arizona by the score of 31-24. Now, there's a lot of games from yesterday that I'm not going to discuss because I'm not going to sit here and waste your time talking about a Michigan blowout win or a Penn State blowout win. To me, those are just not worth talking about. I'm going to talk about the games that I mentioned, I think, in Thursday's video that were going to be good games this weekend, and a few games that I'm going to talk about that probably had a final score closer than what you would expect. But the games that were supposed to be blowouts and were blowouts, there's no point in talking about. Texas defeats Alabama by the score of 34-24. Now, we know these two teams played last year, and Bama won by 1 point. Texas wins by 10 this year, but if you follow the channel, you know that before the season started, I picked Texas to beat Alabama. I also picked Bama to lose 2 other games. I think Bama's dynasty is over. That doesn't mean they're all of a sudden going to be a 6-6, 7-5 football team, but I think gone are the days where Bama is a legit top 5, top 10 team. They're still going to be voted there by some people because of Nick Saban, but I don't think they're no longer a top 5, top 10 football team. I think they're now going to be consistently about a 9-win football team until Saban finally decides to hang it up. So I wasn't surprised by the win. I thought Texas would win the game. In a game that's probably closer than what we thought it would be, Tennessee beats Austin Peay 30-13. So Tennessee's explosive offense just didn't look that explosive yesterday. They actually, at one time, were only up 23-13. So their offense struggled yesterday. I'm not sure if they just couldn't get into the game because it was Austin Peay, or if they were trying some new things, but they just didn't look good yesterday offensively. In a game that was supposed to be close, but wasn't, Notre Dame defeats NC State 45-24. I knew Notre Dame would win the game because Dave Doeren is too conservative on offense to allow Robert Anae to run the Robert Anae offense. But NC State normally has a really good defense, so I thought their defense would help them stay in the game. But Notre Dame wins 45-24. Oregon defeats Texas Tech by the score of 38-30. And another rematch from last year, but not quite as high scoring as last year. North Carolina defeats Appalachian State 40-34. Still high scoring, but last year I think it was like 68-64. So it came down some, but still 74 points get scored. Ole Miss defeats Tulane 37-20. In the game I was surprised by, Miami defeated Texas A&M 48-33. I thought with A&M hiring Petrino to run the offense, they would score some points. Because if you recall, last year those two teams played, and the final score was 17-9. And I was right. A&M scored some points. They scored 33, but I never thought they would allow Miami to score 48 points. Wake Forest defeats Vanderbilt 36-20. That was supposed to be the first game of the day yesterday. It started at 11 o'clock Eastern time, but they played 2 minutes and 1 second before they had a lightning delay. So the game started at 11 o'clock, but it didn't end till, I believe, after 4 o'clock Eastern time. Purdue defeats Virginia Tech 24-17. Another shocker as far as Score goes: Boston College defeats Holy Cross 31-28. Kentucky struggles with their in-state rival Eastern Kentucky, but they win the game 28-17. Iowa defeats Iowa State 20-13. Cincinnati defeats Pittsburgh 27-21. Georgia Southern defeats UAB 49-35. I want to keep an eye on Georgia Southern because if we remember, their coach is Clay Helton, who used to be the head coach at USC. So he should win at Georgia Southern pretty easily. I just don't know if he'll stay there for a very long time. But once he starts winning, I just don't think he's going to stay at Georgia Southern for a long time if he's winning 9 or 10 games every year. Central Florida defeats Boise State 18-16. And a game that some might consider a shocker. To me, I don't. I said before the year started, this team was going to be flat out awful this year. And that is the Virginia Cavaliers. They lose to James Madison 36-35. It doesn't shock me. For one, Virginia is going to be one of the worst teams in the FBS this year. For two, James Madison is actually a really good football team, but Virginia was leading 35-24 going to the fourth quarter, and James Madison scores 12 in the fourth quarter to win the game. And then a couple of the 10:30 Eastern time games from last night ended up being pretty good games. Auburn defeats California 14-10, but Auburn right now on offense will just absolutely bore you to tears. If you get insomnia, watch Auburn on offense. And then Oklahoma State defeats Arizona State 27-15. Again, any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. A ton of games from yesterday, but like I said, I'm not going to sit here and talk about a 30-point win or a 40-point win in a game that everybody knew the team was going to win, and they won easily. To me, that's pointless. There's nothing really to talk about. I mean, you didn't see anything that you didn't expect to see, so I don't see why you waste your time talking about it. Of course, we'll talk about next week's games coming up sometime later on this week. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What did one candy bar say to the other? I've got some Twix up my sleeve. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.